Here, pressure has increased on the Chancellor's tax and spending plans after a smaller than expected surplus in government finances in January. It means Rachel Thieves may have to increase taxes or cut spending if she's to meet her self-imposed rules. Meanwhile, retail sales rebounded in January, mainly because of stronger food sales. Our business editor Simon Jack explains what this all means for consumers and for the health of the wider economy.
There was a more cheerful tune coming from UK high streets in January as shoppers defied many expectations, pushing retail sales higher than expected. But here in Sheffield, the mood was still pretty cautious.
I like looking around, I like looking for bargains, and I've always been a bit that way, but yeah, it's certainly something you have to do now.
I go for the best bargains, actually, yeah. Anything, even if it's a quid difference or even a half 50 pence difference, it matters.
Watch the pennies and the pounds may come.
Someone else watching pennies and pounds is the Chancellor, as new figures today showed pressure on the UK's public purse is growing.
Now, this chart shows how much tax the government collects minus how much it spends. Most months it spends more than it collects. That's called the deficit here in red. But in January, it usually receives more than it spends when self-assessment tax receipts come in. And look, once again over here, a surplus, £15.4 billion. In fact, the highest since records began. That is no surprise. Wages are rising, income tax thresholds are frozen. Means lots of extra tax. It's a first estimate, but it's £5 billion less than the UK's official forecaster was expecting for January. And in fact, by this point in the year, the OBR expected the government to have borrowed £105 billion. In fact, it's borrowed 118 billion, 13 billion pounds more. Now, why does that matter? Well, if the Chancellor is going to stay within her own self-imposed rules over this Parliament, she's likely to have to either raise taxes or cut spending in unprotected areas. These are some of the protected ones over here, health, education, defence, some of the unprotected ones over here. Now, that could mean further cuts for some of those important areas.
So really important parts of the state that will find it hard to deliver cuts at a time when there are increasing demands on them. Increasing defence spending to 2.5% would require an additional 6 billion, and that just would leave even less for unprotected departments.
The Chancellor will get a better view of the economic cake with a new forecast due in March, but will decide how to slice it at a spending review in June. Simon Jack, BBC News.